So while we're here, we're going to go ahead and move on to creating a fire hydrant. So I'm going to go to Devices, Hydrant Maintenance, and I'm going to go to Hydrant Maintenance. To add a new hydrant from this screen, you would go up and click on Add New Hydrant. This little area here, hydrant index number, that's an index number that the system uses. It's not a number that can be changed. So your cursor goes to the hydrant ID field. We're going to enter in a new hydrant called AB-102. If your city or customer uses an asset ID, you can insert it here. Installation date, if you know it, you can enter it here. You do have a calendar where you can go back. If you knew it was installed on April 14th, you can put that date in. The last maintenance, that's the last date that you did a service or a work order for that particular fire hydrant. Active, inactive, more than likely it's active, or you wouldn't be creating a record for it. Then a description of that hydrant, city spec, or whatever description you might want to use, and any comments you might want to attach to that fire hydrant. Map GPS and map address we'll talk about in a little bit. Next is the Details tab. When we go into the Details tab, I want to point out first these green pluses again. These green pluses are a shortcut to go back and create an attribute if one doesn't exist in the drop-down menu that you want to include with this particular hydrant. So first we're going to enter a manufacturer's ID, and we're going to go down and select Mueller. Next we're going to select a Mueller. In this case it's going to be an A122-192. Our city uses yellow fire hydrants. We use valve lock for vandal proof. Our city always uses concrete blocks for restraint. Main diameter 8-inch, buried depth 6.5. If you have a control valve on your hydrant, you can go into a list of valves and select one, or again you can click on this plus sign and go and add one. I'm going to select one from the list. And then we'd like to know the direction of that control valve from the fire hydrant. So it might be north of the fire hydrant, and we measured it and it was 12 feet. Now this area over here again is an area that can't be changed. Once we go out and test this hydrant, the NFPA classification for that hydrant will automatically populate in this area, and the date we did that test will as well. Again, we can upload an image of the fire hydrant here. When we were in the manufacturer's list, we uploaded a picture of a hydrant. That area is intended more for a generic photo of that particular model of hydrant. This area here is intended to have an actual photo of that particular fire hydrant out in the field. We won't add one here, but this is where you could add that photo. The next tab is our Location tab. If we already have GPS information, we can enter that in these first 5 fields. We don't have any right now, but if we did, we would enter them there. If you were using our Hurco equipment, our FireFlow Pro, we could actually capture GPS, and when we upload that information, all of these fields would automatically populate. So we've got latitude, longitude, elevation. VDOP and HDOP will give you an indication of how many satellites you're seeing and how strong your signal is. When these numbers are low, your VDOP and HDOP, you know you've got pretty good GPS. As a general rule of thumb, you want these numbers to be 3.0 or less. In our latitudes here in the United States, we usually see numbers on HDOP of 0.7 to 1.2 or so. But that does depend on your location and your access to clear sky, especially clear southern sky. In this area, I'm going to go in and go ahead and enter an address. I'm going to put in 301. The reason we put the street number in a different field than the street name is for sorting reasons. When we go back to look at a report, if I want to look at all of the hydrants on Prairie Avenue, for example, if I had a street number in front of it, we would not be able to sort it that way. So I'm going to go in and enter a street. Now, IMS doesn't know the names of all the streets you have in your system. So when you first type it in, I just typed in Prairie Avenue, that is stored in our database. The next time you come to this field, if you're on Prairie Avenue, you just start typing P, and all of the streets with a P in them will pop up. The more letters you type, the more you drill down on the actual street name. So Prairie Avenue is now saved. Location city, Harrisburg. As you can see, I've entered Harrisburg before. It just pops up. I select it. State, again, South Dakota, SD. It's populated. Zip code you do have to enter. Okay, and then the next field, X street, is cross street. If we had a cross street nearby that we wanted to reference so we could find it quickly, we would enter that here. I'm going to put in Cliff Avenue. State X and State Y, this is where your UTM values would be. If you're on a GIS system that uses UTM, those values will be in here. General location, this would be just to get you quickly to the fire hydrant. We know that this particular fire hydrant's on the east side in the middle of the block. Location notes. So if there's something in particular that you wanted to note with that fire hydrant, you could do. This is tucked in behind a bush. District maintenance, we're in a multifamily area. The subdivision is Sunset Hills, which I created earlier. And then if you use any particular location IDs, you would enter those here. And then finally, just to take a quick look, we do have a history tab. There's nothing in here. We're going to go back. I'm going to show you a record that does have history in it. But every time you do a maintenance or repair, you've issued a work order, you've gone out and done the work, you've completed it, that will go into your history, and those will just line up here so you can go back and look at history at any date back to when you first started keeping history with IMS. So we're going to go back to hydrant. We've entered in all of our hydrant information. Now I'm going to go ahead and save that data. All right, I'm going to escape out of here a second. I want to show you how the GPS function works. I'm going to go back into hydrants. I'm going to select a hydrant I know has GPS attached to it. And I'm going to go back. If we go to the location tab, you'll see we have GPS information in here. If you're connected to the internet and you have access to Google Earth, you can simply click on this map GPS, and in this area over here it will pull up a map of where the location of that hydrant. If you want to look at a satellite view of that, you can change the view to satellite. So when in the satellite view, if your city's done a horizontal survey, you can actually zoom in and take a look at the fire hydrant. Another feature that Google offers is the ability to get driving directions out to the job site. The way you do that, or out to the particular fire hydrant, the way you do that is double click on the Google logo in the lower left hand corner. The Google window will open up. And over here I can click on Get Directions. And I believe I have one stored in here. 4604 West 39th Street in Sioux Falls. I just double click on that get directions. And it'll give me actual driving directions from wherever I'm at out to the fire hydrant, and over here on the left you can see the turn-by-turn details to get there. So it's a nice free feature if you're connected to the internet. So I'll go ahead and escape out of here. And while I'm in here, I'll just show you quickly on this history tab. This is a particular fire hydrant that we do have some work order history on. If I go in here and double click on this, it'll say loading work order. And a work order will pop up with all the details of that particular activity. In this case, this was a fire flow test that we did on this hydrant. We'll get into these reports at a later time.